Feeling like a black sheep, living in society where everybody's happy with their spoon-fed false realities. CNN and Fox News spinning us a half-truth, one-sided tweets and blurbs, two wings on the same bird. It's time for Fletcher Long. Every story has two sides, a little right, a little wrong. Let freedom ring through your radio. Come on, let's start the show. One thing I know for certain, the truth is in the long version. Spent 18 years in the courtroom, knows the system's broken. Warrior for justice, truth unfiltered. Some people call him the bow tie killer. It's time for Fletcher Long. Every story has two sides, a little right, a little wrong. Let freedom ring through your radio. Come on, let's start the show. One thing I know for certain, the truth is in the long version. The truth is in the long version.
Welcome to the long version, and we're having a little bit of technical difficulties today. I've got a woman that is on that is a fantastic guest. Anyone would be proud to have her, and her name is Joycelyn Liu. Joycelyn, probably one of her most noteworthy things is the fact that she has a teaching certificate and a master's degree and studied theater arts at University of California, Los Angeles, the very prestigious UCLA. Joycelyn, welcome to the long version. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. My phone went down, so I had to borrow my roommate's phone.
That happens to...
I just looked at it, and it was 7:01, and it said no service. So I just went, oh, my God. He goes, take my phone. I'm calling you in.
Well, we've been having some interesting feedback, and that happens sometimes in internet radio. You and I probably won't hear it, and I hope it doesn't come out in the show's broadcast later. You can get this show later on podcast. Obviously, I log all the shows that I do. This portion of the long version is being brought to you by Kim Turner and Associates, from criminal defense to contracts, from divorce to child custody, from military law to asset forfeiture. At the law of Kimberly Turner and Associates, we know that sometimes bad things happen to good people, and good people just get caught up in bad situations, need someone to navigate them through a frightening and daunting system. The law office of Kimberly Turner and Associates will stand beside you and guide you through your most trying ordeals. Call our office at 931-572-1134 or check her out at kturnerlaw.com. That's the law office of Kimberly Turner and Associates. They are the law firm who cares. Joycelyn, thank you so much for joining us. You've done a lot of work in film and in television. You were have credits. You were in a film with Jackie Chan.
Oh, no. Hold on. Why is his alarm going off?
I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it. You were in Battle Creek Brawl. You played Miss Wong in 1980 with Jackie Chan. But probably one of
Actually, I was going to say it was called The Big Brawl in the States. Battle Creek Brawl was the original title that they made it. So I think it's called The Big Brawl, but as far as in the United States, it was his first movie in the United States, because he was a big star in the Orient before that.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to talk about about being a big star in the Orient is you are credited with having the largest role in the television series Kung Fu of any female actress. Yeah, and of course Jodie Foster appeared in Kung Fu. Interesting. Kung Fu was a fantastic show. It was one of my favorites, and it was a show about a Shaolin. I guess he was a monk. He was trained at least by the Shaolin monks. Yeah, and he had killed the emperor's nephew or something, and had to come over to the United States. And you were in an episode. One of the episodes was called "Arrogant Dragon." Were you his love interest in that particular episode?
Well, actually, I did have a scene with him in bed, but I was trying to persuade him to help my father, who the Tong was trying to kill in that episode, and I had to go through a fake. They made a poison that was supposed to just be temporary, so everybody thought my dad was dead, so they wouldn't kill him, and then he came alive. But it was James Hong actually was the apothecary in that scene, and it was very draining because I was crying for my fake funeral, I was crying for the real terror, and it was like 13 days of crying and sobbing, and it was really, really a long day. I almost quit acting. I thought, oh my God, this is so hard. I have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning because I have very oily hair, and the hairdresser said, don't wash your hair the night before. She said, you have to wash it the morning. So I had to get up every morning at 3 in the morning to do, just to get ready to get there to cry. And it hurt my, how when you cry, your ribs ache?
Yes.
Throbbing, and so I was going through the physical pain of, actually, because I was really crying in those scenes, and it was really very traumatic, but it came out great. I mean, it was a great piece of, the scene and everything, and it was a nice thing. And then James Hong actually came to my roast. I was roasted March 4th, and that's how I met Tempest Wolf, who also was on your show.
Right. And one thing I want to talk about Kung Fu, because there's some very interesting subtext here that we just have to explore. I mean, I just have to. It was in the 70s, and according to Bruce Lee's widow, Linda Lee Cadwell, Bruce Lee had originated the concept and intended to star in the series himself, but that David Carradine was cast because the network felt that the American audience was not ready for an Asian actor as the lead. And
that is so true. That is actually heartbreakingly true.
Well, the funny thing about it though is because you're an Oriental actor, and the show did so much to further Asian actors in mainstream Hollywood television production. It really did. It did a lot for the status and prestige of the Asians that really did build the American West by lending, though many somewhat forced labor to building the railroad that connected the country. It really did so much to advance the careers of so many talented Asian actors. It's just odd. It's one of those odd footnotes that with it doing so much to help so many, you included, it was racism that essentially landed David Carradine an iconic role that was the biggest thing he ever did. And he did some big things. I mean, I'm not knocking David Carradine, but the show was a masterpiece, and it was brave for the American Broadcasting Company to depict this culture in such a way, even though they didn't want... Yeah, even though they used a white guy, sure, right? Um,
Ironically, also, there's a lot of times when remember in the old days, they used so many, even in the Charlie Chan thing, he wasn't Asian either.
right.
And that became very popular too. So there were a lot of series where they used whites to play Asian. I've been playing whites, actually. For some reason, I have kind of a different kind of features, and I've been able to play blondes and redheads, and I'm doing the opposite. So I'm doing it unusual. It's unusual because, I played a French maid. I played all different kinds of parts, which were typically just for white people, so to speak, So that's different. And my favorite character is Mae East. I made a takeoff on Mae West.
Right.
And for some reason, I look like Mae West. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but I do look like Mae West with blonde hair.
Hey, lucky you. Nothing wrong. Nothing wrong with looking like Mae West. But
Well, I do a takeoff. It's called Mae East. I go, is that an egg roll in your pocket, or are you just glad to see me?
let me ask you this question. I think it was your father that was a chauffeur for Lucille Ball. Is that right?
Well, actually, he worked for William Holden. My mom and dad worked for William Holden. This was, before I was born. And he has amazing stories of having hosted, them. And he said that at one time Lucille came for dinner, and my dad said, and she brought that Cuban fellow.
Yeah, yes. Her husband, Desi Arnaz. But the question I wanted to ask you, because you're a very funny woman. Do comedy. You've done stand up. Do you think that your parents, being within that Hollywood society, really gave you a perspective, and being in the Hollywood society from a very respectable but in glamorous way? You know what I mean? I mean, they weren't actors or something like that. They were regular people.
Actually, my dad and mom were actors, but in those days they couldn't get acting parts per se. So my mother did a lot of extra work with Marlon Brando. She played his mother-in-law in a bit part in Sayonara. She was in Piazza the August Moon. She was in The Sand Pebbles. She played a princess. She was in a lot of Brando things, So I had an episode where I was actually dating Christian Brando because my mother sort of encouraged it. She said, "Oh, I had a dream that Marlon came for dinner," and it was just kind of weird how there's so much synchronicity in life of people, and it just never know who you're going to know, as you said, 6 degrees of separation.
I'll tell you something interesting. There's been a lot of people that appeared in an episode of Kung Fu that are huge. Don Johnson appeared in an episode. Pat Morita, Tina Louise, who was Ginger. I've always said that there's two kinds of men in the world. There's the Ginger kind of men, and then the Mary Ann. Yeah. Harrison Ford appeared in an episode in 1974. Yeah, I'm a wealth of knowledge. But there's another way in which we are connected. Harrison Page played Pete in an episode in 1974, and I have interviewed Harrison Page. Of course, Harrison Page would go on to star with Don Rickles in Sergeant Sharkey, or what was the name of that military show that was on? Something to do with CPO Sharkey. I'm sorry. But there's so many big people, and it's just interesting to me that, it's like you said, it was hard to get work, legitimate work as an actor, as an Asian actor in Hollywood. A lot of people in Hollywood had to take different types of ways to make a living. I remember I also interviewed the guy that played in the television show Home Improvement, Richard Karn.
Oh yeah, he was actually one of my clients. Tim, what's his name?
Tim Taylor. Yeah, I mean, Tool Time Tim. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
No, Tim.
The lead.
Can't we think of his name?
I don't know. How can I not think of this guy?
He's a smart.
Yeah, he's really, and I hear he's an incredibly nice guy. Tim, come on, man.
I know. That's crazy.
You know, that's crazy. I can't think of this guy's
Name is
name.
so fleeting. You can't even remember. Well, anyway, yeah, I have a fish company, and that's how I did some postcards for him and for the cast.
Well, I interviewed Richard Karn. Of course, his name on the show, this Tim guy, his name on the show was Tim Taylor, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for what his name is in real life, and I can't believe it. How can I not know this? He played in the show was called Tool Time. Well, anyway, I was interviewing Richard Karn, whose name I can come up with, and Richard, interestingly enough, he and his wife, she was a dancer and actor, and he's an actor, and they came out to L.A. and the way that they made it until he hit it big was he was kind of exactly who his character Al Borland was. He was a super handyman, superintendent and handyman of a hotel out there in California. He and his wife both managed this hotel, and he was kind of the handyman. He was Al Borland. You know, he really was. He was Al Borland. You know,
well,
really.
Harrison Ford was a carpenter.
So.
Did you know that?
Yeah, no, I didn't. But I mean, it doesn't surprise me because.
Yeah, he did the A&M Studios. He didn't even know how to do it, but he needed the work, and so he said he couldn't, and he became really good at it. And my friend Stan Hanman's an attorney, and he did his room of. He showed me all the stuff that Harrison Ford did, and it was amazing.
Well, the point is that really no one in Hollywood, there are really no waiters or chauffeurs. Everybody's an actor trying to get going. But you appeared in kind of an iconic television series that did a lot to help people like your parents gain, because until Kung Fu, there was something that was noble about this Shaolin monk who was searching for his brother, you know, and there was something that was running from something in Asia, obviously, that wouldn't fight unless he was having to defend himself. There was something about that kind of cast Asian culture in a much finer light than it had before been cast, right? I mean, it had been...
Yeah, I think that it was one of the most popular shows of the decade, I think, for a lot of, I mean, men loved it and women liked it, and, you know, the sayings, like the little fortune teller cookie sayings kind of thing, you know. He'd always say, oh, grasshopper, what do you say?
Yeah.
He would say something. But I find that's true even in the old Charlie Chan things. They'd always say, Confucius said, you know, so they always have all these little witty things that are memorable.
Well,
Don't you think, to say?
I do think. Man, you know, you are a very, very, very good-looking woman. You've done modeling. You've done stuff for like body fitness magazines and stuff like that. Which is not. I wanted to tell you my Tempest Wolf story. Would you indulge me in this?
Sure.
All right. Well, you know, in Hollywood, you almost always meet people that some of them are pretty regular people, and others of them maybe not. But Tempest and I had a mutual friend that she and I have both fallen out with this guy. Neither one of us are particularly friendly with him, although I bear him no.
I think I know who that is.
Yeah, I bear him no ill will. But anyway.
I think I know who that is. I think we also have that.
We have that connection too, huh? Well, I don't want to.
Yes.
I don't want to.
Found out quite by accident.
I don't want to introduce the guy, but anyway, he helped me much like your publicist is Joe Williamson, right? And Joe calls me up and says, "Hey, would you interview Joycelyn Liu?" Well, of course I will. I'm a big fan of Joycelyn Liu. I think she's brilliant. I'd be happy to interview her. So I was thrilled to do it. But anyway, so this guy used to kind of book some guests for me, and one of them was Tempest Wolf. I kind of met her through him, but he has a tendency to incorporate what's called a you and me against the world type of scenario, where he generally turns on somebody. And the thing that's dangerous about people like this is, when is it your turn? You really never know when it's going to be your turn in the hot box. Well, he got upset with me. And one reason he got upset with me is that he felt like that I needed to be paying him for booking Tempest Wolf on the long version. And of course, I've worked with many publicists. I mean, this guy, I kind of considered this guy a publicist. I'm not sure that's what he would call himself. He called himself a booker, but I don't know what a booker is. I think he's kind of a publicist, really. And I just always assumed that these acts that he was booking had the contractual relationship with him. You don't really, I mean, you've done radio too, Joycelyn, as well as television. You've got a cooking show.
Oh, yeah,
Right? I mean, you don't.
voiceovers for National Public Radio.
Well, if you went up to a show host on NPR and said, "Hey, this guy wants to come on your show, and we need you to pay us some money," there's not many shows out there that are going to book you. I mean, they really don't do that. I mean, I guess there's a level that happens, but it.
I've never heard of it.
Well, you're right. You were on NPR. I mean, you're as familiar with this game as anybody, and of course, I'm certainly a veteran of broadcasting. I'm not just a narcissist who I am a narcissist, but I'm not just a narcissist who decided to have an internet radio show one day because I wanted to hear myself talk. I mean, I did terrestrial radio for over a decade, and so I mean, I am a professional broadcaster. Well, anyway, so I've dealt with publicists before, but I've never had them tell me that I needed to pay them, right? I mean, whoever they were booking, I felt certain had some contractual relationship with the person who was booking them on my show, and that was part of what they were selling. You see, I'm such a good publicist, I got you on this internet radio show that people listen to. That's what you're selling. That's the product, right? Well, anyways, yeah. I mean, you get that, right? I'm plowing pretty fertile ground here.
Sure.
You get this.
Sure.
Well, this guy, first of all, you go into this arrangement, you never know that he really thinks you owe him money. And then all of a sudden, one day, he decides that you don't just owe him for booking people in the future, you owe him for everybody he's already booked that you didn't know you were even going to be paying for, And if you don't pay him, he hates on you. And he calls you names, and he starts crap about you, and he invents rumors about you, and he litters up your social media pages and stuff like that. Well, so I get to know Tempest, and I interview her, and then this guy and I have a falling out. Well, all of a sudden, Tempest unfriends me, and then she blocks me from calling her, and all this kind of. So I know that the well's been poisoned. Are you familiar with that Southern expression, Joycelyn, poisoning the well?
Poisoning the well.
Yeah.
Well, I am now.
Well, there it is. That's what we call that in the South. When somebody, if I got on the phone with you and tried to poison you against somebody, which it sounds like I'm doing with this guy, but I'm really not, that's called poisoning the well. Okay. And so anyway, it's a situation where he poisoned the well with her, and one of my listeners said, "Be careful. That's good advice," right? Because I'm not trying to set this guy off. But anyway, so then all of a sudden, Tempest reaches back out to me after she's unfriended me and everything, and apparently this guy has had a row with her, and has done the same modus operandi. He's undertaken the same type things, that he does when he decides he no longer likes you. And so Tempest
figured out what happened.
Do what?
I guess then she figured out what happened.
Right. Well, what happens is now Tempest and I are friends again because we've both experienced the same ordeal. And we're moving forward from here, and we're moving forward without this guy. But that's that's kind of my Tempest Wolf story. But I think Tempest is very talented, and she has a lot of Aboriginal Native First Peoples blood in her, which is a way of saying she's Indian. But I don't like to use the term Indian because that was a misnomer. That's just because Christopher Columbus was lost and didn't really know where he was. Is how that name came into being. So
I cast her. Actually, I was producing a short, and I met her when we were doing a video game commercial, and we hit it off, and I needed some more people for this little short we were doing last week. So then I called her. I asked her if she wanted to do it. So yeah. So then I ended up going to a party with her, and we just kind of hit it off. And we found out there was a failed project that we were both up for. And it was weird because, she said she was looking for a corset for this thing that she was putting together. And I said, I was doing a steampunk thing too. And I said the name of it. And she goes, it was the same one. It was so weird. Hollywood is so small.
it really is, because people don't think about all the connections, but there's so many connections in Hollywood, and you really do. It's really one of those. It's like me going through and seeing that Harrison Page, for instance. Of course, I'm not in Hollywood. I'm in Kentucky, but there's a lot of connections. Of course, in Kentucky, there's a lot of rumors of our connections being rather close, but I'm not going to go into that. But I'm making an allusion to a joke about Kentucky. But anyway, we're not really our own grandfathers, even though that's what people claim. But there are a lot of connections, and it's like, I go through and I see that you were in Kung Fu, which was one of my favorite series, and then I go further and see that Harrison Page appeared in it too, and the two of you now have this in common. Harrison was very interesting. He's done so much work. Harrison has. He's done a lot of work, and he was in that. I guess probably one of his biggest movie credits was he was in a Chuck Norris movie. You're seeing the connection between you and Harrison Page, right? He was in.
Which one?
Oh Lord, was it? He was. Was it Hero and the Terror? It might have been Hero and the Terror. So he was actually in a movie. Well, he was in a movie with Chuck Norris and Jack O'Halloran, and guess who else I have interviewed? Not Chuck Norris, but I've interviewed Jack O'Halloran twice. And I met him through this guy that the same way I met Tempest. This guy, it's a shame this guy didn't realize that he was a publicist, because he's a very fine publicist. He just is a little bit confused about who's supposed to be paying him. But I mean, he's a very fine publicist if he wants to be. But anyway, Harrison, very odd. I interviewed him, and I told him, I said, listen, the podcast will be up, and I'll send you a copy of the podcast. And he just kind of told me, he said, I will probably never listen to it. And I said, well, why in the world would you do a 2-hour radio show and never listen to it? He goes, well, I'm pretty comfortable with what I've said. I don't need to listen to it. So Harrison has never heard, if I take him at his word, he's never heard even the episode of the long version on which he appeared. But he was a wonderful interview.
I have actually not heard a lot of things I've done, because I figure, I was there.
Well, you may be the same. You and Harrison think alike in that regard. I thought that was strange, but it may not be strange. It may be entirely appropriate for him to think that way.
I think sometimes when you do a lot of stuff, you're just so busy. It's weird because I hardly even get a chance to sit down and watch movies or TV. I mean, I belong to the Television Academy, and I have the Film Society, and I haven't been to the last 7 movies.
Well, I wanted.
I'm listening to this because I've been so busy working.
That's a good thing, isn't it? I mean, that's for what we hope, is that we'll be so busy working we won't have time to listen to television shows, right? I mean, that's kind of the hope. This portion of the long version is being brought to you. This portion of the long version is being brought to you by Matt McWhirter. If you're moving to Clarksville, being stationed at Fort Campbell, or moving anywhere in Middle Tennessee or Southern Kentucky, go see my friend Matt McWhirter in the mortgage division of F&M Bank. Matt and F&M are in the American Dream business. They want to help your family achieve the American dream. They have locations all over Clarksville. You can reach out to Matt at 931-245-4274. That is 931-245-4274. Or you can email him at matt, matt.macwhirter, MCWHIRTER, at myfmbank.com and apply for your home loan or refinance right online. That's Matt McWhirter, F&M Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender. I wanted to talk to you about some more of your television credits because it seems to me like that you tend to turn up in all the shows that I really love, which is good for you because I'm a big fan of Kung Fu. But you also did a Married with Children. And
I did actually 3 episodes.
Well, that in my mind makes you larger than life. Married with Children, in my estimation, was a brilliantly written show, and
so funny.
It really is so funny. Now, refresh my memory. I knew that you were in Married with Children. What was you kind of had a recurring role? You were you the same character?
They were completely different isolated events. I was cast by Amanda Bierce. She was directing the first time I did it was, remember, because I have a certain character that I always, many times play because of the way I look, and they had the jiggly room, and the guy would say, "Welcome to the jiggly room."
The jiggly room, yeah. Al Bundy's favorite place, yeah, the jiggly room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I played kind of a stripper called Feathers, and I had done this movie called Big Trouble in Little China. You know that one with Kurt Russell?
Oh, that's that is a fantastic movie. That was the one where like the diplomat, the Asian diplomat, might have was implicated in a murder, and isn't that the one?
This is kind of a weird thing John Carpenter directed, and it was with Kurt Russell. It's kind of, I don't really know exactly because it's so much action. I don't remember the storyline of it, but Kim Cattrall was in it.
Yeah.
What happened was they had a premiere, and James Hong said, "Can you do a fan dance?" So I'm thinking of a Chinese fan dance, with the little fans and colorful and cute. And then it goes, "No, we mean like Noelle Toy." Noelle Toy was the first Chinese burlesque dancer. She did the bubble dance, and she did the Sally Rand with the feathers. That's what he's thinking. He was thinking of the sexy, like The Right Stuff. Remember the beginning of that? They had the fan dance. So I went, talking to myself, I might have known. Every time they give me something to do, it has to do with some sexy thing. It can't just be a, traditional Chinese dance. And I said, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to learn right. So I called up Noelle Toy, who was in, the book of burlesque. I looked her up, and she was like the first one at the World's Fair. She danced, and she was amazing. So she came over my house, and this lady is got to be, she's probably in her 80s. I don't really know how, but she comes in and she's wearing spandex iridescent turquoise pants with a fringe top. She's got this ponytail, coal black, with these lashes and iridescent fuchsia nails that are so long. And I opened the door and I went, "Noelle?" And she goes, "Hi!" Like this bubbly little thing, and she was amazing. And so he said, "Well, I got some pictures over, and I thought I'd show you because I was at my mother's house now in San Francisco." And so she brings these pictures over, and at the time I was married, and I said, "Oh, well," I said, "Come and see Noelle, come and meet her." And so she goes, "Here are the pictures." And he goes, "You're naked." And she goes, "Yes, I am."
Oh, she wasn't the least bit reserved about it, was she?
So she taught me how to, she taught me how to do it.
Well, how to be
Everything.
There's a certain amount of comfort you have to have in order to bear yourself in that way. I mean, it's probably a very
Well,
terrifying.
I used to be afraid, but after being body double, um, and after having to just, more or less think of me as a piece of meat, I mean, seriously, uh, so I couldn't really, get worried about it because I was kind of thinking of it in a different term. I used to take it personally, but then I realized, if you are body dubbing somebody else, it is actually your body, and it really doesn't. I mean, I disembody myself. I kind of don't relate as much as I used to get all personal about. Oh my God, And now I realize that it's not that big a deal anymore. But at the time, when you first find out somebody wants to do. I mean, I even had this guy say, if you leave this door, you're not going to work in this town anymore. And I was crying and I was all upset because I thought that, I thought it was so important. But then now you keep acting, you keep meeting people, and, people don't remember things. They just, need you for the time that you're doing the show, and then that's it.
Let me ask you this. I noticed that in Big Trouble in Little China, and I was wrong about what the plot of it was. I was getting it confused with another movie. But James Hong was in that, and I think James Hong was at your roast, wasn't he?
Yes, what happened was, when I got roasted, well, when I knew about it and everything was happening, he texted me and he said, I hear you're going to have a roast. And I thought, why would he text me unless he wants to do it? And so I kind of, a few days thought about it, and so I texted him back. I said, James, I said, did you want to, come to my roast? And so then that's how it happened. And then he ended up being very, very funny. He did an impression of Eric Lee, who's a grandmaster, doing a kung fu kata set. And he's so funny. I interviewed him for Eric's documentary a couple years ago, and he was doing Michael Jackson. I mean, he's really, really funny. He used to be a stand-up comedian, I found out.
James and you have got to be pretty good friends because you've turned up in a lot of stuff that he has done. I mean, didn't he do The Golden Child?
Yes.
And weren't you?
I think he did. I know Peter did. Peter Long did. I mean, there's so many. There's only so many. Well, he's one of the most famous Asian actors, I would say, because he's done everything, like over 400 films and things. So he's been everywhere. And so when I did the kung fu, I had this huge part, and he had, a key part, but it wasn't the lead, and that was the first time that I ever, would do a bigger part than him in anything. I think. I mean, I'm not sure if that's never going to happen again, but it was kind of like, shocking to me because he was so, iconic, and he still is amazing. I mean, it's great that he's still around and he's dancing, and he wanted me to do the Lindy Hop with him, and I didn't even know what that was. But nowadays you can Google everything. So, and then he's the one that got me into burlesque. Once I started doing it, I kind of knew how to do it, and then I auditioned. And then I got into this burlesque troupe, and so once a month I've been doing it. It keeps you kind of on your toes because they just throw music at me and ask me to dance to it. I mean, I get, maybe a couple days, sometimes only one day, and I have to create a whole dance. And I have now a big bunch of costumes because I do magic at the Magic Castle too. So I combine my magic and my burlesque, and I have a cooking show on Amazon Prime called Cooking In with Joyce Lynn, and it's also on YouTube. So I'm getting subscribers to that, and also I'm making a cookbook called Cooking In with Joyce Lynn, and I'm just in the middle of editing the last part of it so I can get it out for the holidays.
I saw a review of your Cooking In with Joyce Liu. I saw a review where somebody
Joyce
was
Lynn.
okay. Joyce Lynn. I'm sorry. I saw a review where somebody was saying that you were better at making their kind of ethnic dish than were they, and they were members of that ethnicity. So it was like a Greek person that was talking about how you were better at this Greek dish than you were teaching her how to cook in her own native.
I think that was hummus we were making.
Hummus. Yeah, that's what it was.
And it's so good, and lot of foods that are not that expensive, because I was trying to gear my book to people that don't have a lot of money and they just don't know what to do in the kitchen. And it's not that hard, but they just don't know. I mean, the magician I work with, all he does is boil everything. He boils. If he can't boil it, he doesn't eat it. He doesn't do anything but boil. Boiled eggs, boiled oatmeal, boiled coffee, everything he boils. And just water. And he said he's never even opened his oven ever. And he didn't even know about a Teflon frying pan. We had this discussion about metal. I said, you know you can't use metal on Teflon? He said, I've never fried anything in my life.
Well, I'm glad to know that chickpeas have a lot of, and hummus is basically chickpeas, right? Is that what comprises it? All right. Well, I'm glad to know they're full of protein because, I'm on that Atkins diet. I've lost quite a bit of weight trying to limit my carb intake. And, peas and beans tend to be the vegetables that have carbohydrates. But if they have a lot of protein, you can generally, you've heard of the concept or the fantasy of the net carb, is that you can deduct the protein from the carbs, and the net result are the carbs that you're eating, and if you stay below a certain level of carbs, you will in theory lose weight. And I've lost weight doing it, so I can't really say in theory. I think you plateau after a while, but I mean it's it's really not a diet. It's kind of like a change in lifestyle. But I'm glad to know that about garbanzo beans or hummus, because I would love some homemade hummus. Just saying, if you feel so inclined, Joycelyn, you can. I'm not trying to fish. Well, I am. I actually am fishing for some hummus.
It's so simple. I have that show that we did. We belly danced onto the show. I do an intro that's kind of dancing into it. So I love tap dancing too. I did that on a couple things. We did an Irish jig last week for St. Patty's Day. I try to have fun because sometimes things get boring if you're not having fun with it. So if you have fun, the audience usually has fun.
Joycelyn, you've almost always played. I mean, you've got a master's degree. You're a certified teacher. You went to UCLA and studied there. I mean, you're very, very intelligent and articulate, well-spoken. And this is something I don't know as much about because I'm male. And I don't know that men are objectified as much as women. Well, I'm pretty sure they aren't, or at least I'm not. But unless you're a Chippendale dancer, is there something? Was there ever a point in your career where you had to resign yourself to the fact? I mean, you've played a lot of sexy roles, right? I mean, you just have. I mean,
I'm totally typecast like that ever since I was in college. I mean, this director was in college. I mean, I was actually not even. I was virgin face, and this guy hit me on the back. When I was my first year of college, he goes, "I don't want to insult you, but there's a role you'd be perfect for." It was a hooker part. And I had to seduce somebody on stage, and I hadn't even kissed anybody. And I was so nervous. And the first time I had to kiss somebody in my acting class, it was Look Homeward Angel, and I was supposed to be seducing this boy. And we were on the bench, and I kept going away from him. Finally, I fell off the bench, and I just couldn't do it. And finally, I had to realize, it's just a scene, and I had to realize that, that's the character kind of that I look like that, even though I didn't have any experience, but I just had that aura for some reason.
Well, Joycelyn, there's a lot of women, as Jerry Clower used to refer to them as the women's libbers. There's a lot of women out there that will take you to task or hold it against you, claim that you've traded on your looks. Is there some? Do you feel like that there's some discrimination that some women that you have to experience because of the fact you're using basically the gifts you have, which I think in today's theological moment for Meeks and Meeks attorneys is when the master gives them the talents, they were actually supposed to use the talents. The servant that stuck the talent in the ground was
That's
not.
true. I think that there was a time when I was a little bit disheartened, and I said, I keep playing these sexy roles and stuff like that, and so the agent said to me, it's a compliment. He said they don't pay ugly women have sex, and then I looked on Hollywood Boulevard and I said, well, that's really not true.
That's not true. Yeah, that's not really true. Yeah.
But I know what he was saying. He was trying to be complimentary, and at first it worked. It's like no, but it is funny how people would say possibly that you are getting typecast, but on the same token, you want to be typecast because you want someone to think of you for those roles because that's what you fall into.
Well, you are cast. The beautiful thing about typecast, Joycelyn, is you're still cast. That's the beautiful thing. Let me ask you this question, because you have a credited role in a movie called Nipples and Palm Trees.
Oh my God, I did not know that was not a comedy. And they had me do it over like 11 times, and he cracked up, and it was so funny. And I was ad-libbing stuff, and I was playing this mad sort of the owner of this massage parlor, and I go, oh, you coming to me? You come now, and then you can come later. And I was just, doing this crazy Asian accent because sometimes I think it's funny these Asian. I used to get upset about having to do an Asian accent, but there are women that have that accent, and that's what my friend Kathleen told me. She said, it's not like you're mocking them; you're just portraying the way they talk.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, okay.
Well,
you have a Southern accent, and I could do that Southern accent all day long because my mom was from San Antonio, so I've got all kinds of different Southern accents.
You've done voiceover work too. Yeah, I wanted to point out that you are.
I'm actually sort of. It should be a compliment in a way because I'm using what they are, and I'm just recreating their character.
You have what's called an ear for dialect. I mean, you were able, picking up the Southern accent off of me today, to do a very credible. I could have been talking to the girl that lives right down the gravel road from me, as easily as I was talking to an Asian sex symbol from Hollywood.
Well, like there's so many different Southern accents too. Like Texas has a hard edge to it, kind of like that. It's a little different. It's tougher, and then there's this Southern accent that's really so sweet, and it just rolls off your face and tongue and everything else. So you can vary it.
Well, the next thing you got to master is what's called the Bellmead brogue, and I had a friend of mine named Larry Brenton that had that, and he'd call you up and he'd go, Fletcher, this is Larry Brenton, and I was wondering if you might have me come over and be on your show a week from Tuesday. That's called the Bellmead brogue, and those are the Southerners that have like lots of money. That if they have that brogue, they either have lots of money or came from lots of money. But that's a very refined Southern brogue. Yes. Yeah, that's the Southern drawl at its most effective. Sure. I wanted. It's funny that I asked you about being a sex symbol because I interviewed not long ago, and I think you're friends with her, Lisa London, and. Nipples and Palm Trees, pretty tame movie when you compare it to the movie in which Lisa London was a big star. She's been a big star in several, but Hots, the sorority version that was supposed to be the counter to Animal House. In the movie poster from Hots it was supposed, the Hots was the name of the sorority. Of course, the girls were all hot. It's the not real inconspicuous play on words there. But there is. It would seem to me, Joycelyn, and as someone that's as intelligent and well spoken as you, that there's got to be a point, and Lisa too. Because Lisa's also very intelligent. And Tempest Wolf, who I interviewed, I'll tell you the truth about Tempest. Tempest might be just a genius. I don't know at how much depth you've ever sat around and talked with her, but
Oh yeah.
her ability
We
to.
have so much in common because she's very like a can do kind of girl, and we have, believe it or not, we both have toolkits in our bedrooms.
I would believe it because Tempest Wolf pretty much sat on these airwaves and built an engine from scratch, from the ground up. She knows as much about internal combustion as anybody I think out there. She's a lot like that in My Cousin Vinny. She's pretty much like the feed.
That scene in the courtroom?
Yes, she's very much like that. But I wonder how galling it is, and I guess I'm asking, how galling is it to always be perceived or cast because of your figure or because you're good looking, or how, is it something that you just learn to abide because after all we all got to eat and work, or is it tough?
It's fun to be a bimbo. I absolutely love being a bimbo. I think more people should be bimbos because bimbos rule the world. Don't you think?
That sounded like Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn.
Yeah.
Yes, that's one of my voices also. I do a lot of Marilyn. It's very weird, isn't it? Because I don't look like her, but I can.
I'll tell you this, Joycelyn, and that's a very good Marilyn Monroe, but I'll tell you, and you have a real gift and an ear for voices. But I'll tell you another one is Kelly Bundy from Married with Children.
Oh, yeah.
She is Ivy League educated. And
yeah, she was my client too, because in my printing company, I printed a lot of headshots for her. Her mother was also an actress.
What is that actress's name? She's had a huge career. That played Kelly Bundy. Yes.
Oh, that's Christine Applegate.
Yeah, Christine Applegate. Somebody look her up, and you will be shocked. I mean, you shouldn't be. Because is there something that requires a genius to play the fool?
Well, Marilyn wasn't dumb either.
Absolutely not. She certainly had a lot of savvy. Yeah.
Dolly Parton's a genius. Look at her.
Is there something? There was. I don't know if you remember. There was a musical variety show, the Mandrell Sisters. Are you familiar with them? Barbara and Earlene.
Yeah.
And
I don't know them, but of course I've heard of them and I've seen, them.
Well, one of those three sisters always played the doofus in their musical variety show, and I think it was Earlene, but I could be wrong. But yes, it was Earlene because Louise certainly was no doofus. Well, anyway, and you're very wrong in entertainment if you think that the person that plays the doofus is a doofus. Many times, the smartest person on the set's playing the fool. Many times.
Well, look at Gomer Pyle.
Yeah.
Right? Jim Neighbors. He played that stupid voice.
Well, golly, Andy. Yeah. I mean, golly. Yeah. He. But anyway, so Boots Randolph, who was a famous musician, he was he played the same instrument President Clinton plays. I don't know what's wrong with my brain today. A saxophone. He was a saxophone player. And he used to have a benefit golf tournament at Barkley Lake in Kentucky. And the Mandrell sisters' husbands were playing in it one year, and my dad was paired with Earlene Mandrell's husband. And he may have been putting my dad on, but dad was commenting on she must really be smart to be able to play the fool so convincingly. And her husband looked at him and said, no, she's really that stupid. And that's always kind of stuck with me. They might have been having marital problems at the time. And if they weren't at the time, I guarantee you they were after she heard what he had said. But the point is, Kelly Bundy was the smartest member of the cast of Married with Children. If you were going to take raw IQ, she was the smartest member of that cast. And she played the dunce. And you're really smart, and you have played the bimbo or the whore or the stripper, and it's a real study in how much intelligence it takes to perform in theater or performing arts in order to fully comprehend a role enough to convincingly play it.
It's a lot of fun, though, too. It's also fun to play the bad girl, which I got to do in Samurai Cop 2, which was another movie, which, originally, you think that it's bad, but people have so much fun playing bad people. I mean, it's only a fun. I mean, because you get to do things that are just more out of the box, I guess you'd say.
This portion of the long version is being brought to you by the hottest real estate agent in the Tuckasee markets, Fletcher Long Grant for Keller Williams. If you're moving to Tennessee or Kentucky, getting stationed at Fort Campbell, or being transferred to another base from Fort Campbell, need to buy a home or sell one, Fletcher Long Grant aligns herself with champions, delivers excellence. Call her today at 931-206-4980. That's 931-206-4980. Fletcher Long Grant, aligning herself with champions and delivering excellence. What other projects do you have that are coming up? Because we've talked a lot about what you have done, and you've really kind of done a staggering amount of work in both television and film. But what are we going to see from you in the future?
I'm doing a Christmas movie with Greg Hatanaka, and it's going to be more family oriented. I don't know. He hasn't even got the script yet, but he totally wants to do this Christmas movie this year. So we met and talked about that one project, and then it's my cooking show. I was doing themes. I was doing St. Patrick's Day. I was doing Valentine's Day, Easter, all these different things. And I was told yesterday I should just do the show, not necessarily with the holiday theme, because he said sometimes people think it's only for the holiday and that you should just do a generic. I could do my characters, but not necessarily do it for a holiday, because you could say, oh, well, it's not Halloween. I don't want to watch that show because it's not Halloween. But some people watch it anyway. In Germany, it's very popular, I found out. So he said it's going to be going to 200 countries this year. And so that's kind of exciting because, it's going to bring a bigger market of fun. I mean, it's just people laugh, and I think it's good because it's sort of visual and not just, here's food, here's your food. I think every day should be fun with whatever you do. And if you have a passion about something and you're having fun, I think the audience is going to feel it and they're going to enjoy it. Because when I show people, they start laughing when they watch my show. They just laugh. And I myself, we don't even script it. We just do it because I know what I'm going to make, but I don't know what we're going to do till the magician comes, and then we start riffing, or else if I have a celebrity guest. Kathy Garver is coming to visit me next week from Family Affair. Remember her?
Yes, I do. In fact, she and I have something in common too. Kathy is a lovely woman, and she has a publicist named Fred Asher, who is a friend of mine. We know a lot of the same people. Are you learning that? You and I. How did we just now cross each other's path? But Kathy, I talked to Kathy about coming on the long version, and she said, I'll give you 30 minutes. And I said, well, Miss Garver, that's really not the kind of show that I have. She said, well, I'll give you an hour. That's all I can give you. I said, well, ma'am, it was lovely talking to you, because that's just, I'm kind of the James Lipton. But I'll tell you what, I'd love to have her on, but I want her to have the confidence of knowing that her life's work is definitely worth 2 hours. I mean, because it is.
She's going to stay with me for 3 days.
Well, give her a mention. Tell her I still want to interview her, but I'd like.
I can just mention it and see. You never know. Sometimes, if you have somebody that's already done it, maybe then they'll be more inclined to trust it.
I want to ask you. I want to ask you about NPR because if I were to, when I sat down with my agent and he said, okay, where do you see your show going? I said, well, I've always thought that NPR was pretty intelligent fare in radio. And of course, I like to think myself an intellectual. I think I can pass myself off as one anyway. And I would really love to have a show on NPR. What was your experience like?
Well, mine was strictly a voiceover job, and it was with, Brock Peters,
Yes.
the black guy. Brock Peters, he was one of the voices, and it was simply a job just to do a scripted radio drama. And it was weird. I just auditioned for it, and they said they wanted to hear me sing. We didn't have to sing on the show, but they had me sing a number, and so I just did it a cappella. And then I just ended up, getting that role. And it was a while ago, but I just remember they had some just different kinds of roles and talent, and it was, I don't even remember what exactly it was about. It was called The Last Game Show, and we were just doing voicing on it, so I didn't really have to connect with people involved in NPR. It was just on that, played on their channel or whatever they have.
Who do you think's the most talented person with whom you've ever gotten to work? Who was the person that you thought to yourself, I cannot believe that I'm getting to work with this individual?
I have a crush on Anne Margaret.
Well, she's crushable. Yeah, she's very crushable.
She's so talented, she's sexy, and she's fun, and she's sweet. And I had a huge compliment from my cousin. She called me up. She said, I'm watching this musical. It's called Bye Bye Birdie, and this girl reminds me of you. And it was Anne Margaret. I was like, oh, thank you.
What did you do with Anne Margaret?
It was called The Outside Man. It's a French movie. And it turns out I was having a meeting with Greg Hatznaga, and I don't know how we got talking about French directors, and I mentioned it. He said, that is my five favorite films of all the world was that. And I said, I didn't even think anybody had ever seen it. Oh, I know why. Because the French actress that was in Amour, that just passed away like about a month ago or so. You remember?
Yeah.
She was in that movie. It was nominated for Academy Award. And I said, oh, I worked with Jean-Louis Trintignant because I speak French, and I speak French with him. And he was saying, if you come to France, you would be able to speak French perfectly in 1 month. And I said, well, how long have you been in America? And he said, 1 month. I said, why can't you speak English? And he goes, I am allergic.
The French are not fans of English, and they generally won't speak English, even though they're capable. Now, by Amour, are you talking about the movie that had Jean-Louis and was directed by Michael Haneke?
Yeah, the one that was. I didn't see it, but it was about the death of his spouse.
Right. Yeah.
It was very depressing, and I was told it was depressing. I try not to see depressing things because I just want to be happy.
Yeah, well, that's right. It's a fantastic. I think it's a really
movie,
exquisite movie, really, and it is very sad. It's kind of like it's kind of like if you saw the show Just Friends, that movie they all go to the movie theater to see, and Just Friends. Ryan Reynolds is in that movie, and he's the guy that has come back. He's now good looking, but he was fat in high school. That movie. But so anyway, Anne Margaret is the person that you got to work with her on a French film, or at least it had it.
Yeah.
Anne Margaret was in a lot of the Elvis films, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And of course, Anne Margaret was probably one of the best looking women to have ever lived. If you go look at her in Grumpy Old Men and think, oh my goodness, she's got to be what in that movie, 70? And
I don't know, but she looks good. I saw her, a few years ago, and she looks good, and she's just a wonderful person. I mean, if you just see how she stuck with Roger Smith, through his illness, and she's just, I don't know, to me, so talented. She can sing, she can dance, she's, worked hard, and she's just remember?
Yes, I mean she's really Anne Margaret is a fan, a wonderful. She's just a wonderful
I'm
talent.
a huge fan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so that's the.
Autographed pictures of Jenny.
Oh wow, and that is,
Because I worked on that film.
that's
I
like
don't even think she knows how much I,
that's like career defining, isn't it?
Well, it's just really cool to me. Dolly Parton is also amazing. I was in an elevator with her, and I was so starstruck. I couldn't even talk. I was like, oh my god, she was just like, and she's not that big, but she's just, got wonderful, charisma.
Anne Margaret is Swedish American, and of course,
Yes.
depending on where you
Her
come,
name is Olsen,
you know,
and my godmother's name is Olsen.
depending on from where you come in Switzerland, they speak a lot of French anyway. So I'm sorry, I meant Sweden. I'm sorry, that's a misspeak. Depending on from where you come in Sweden,
They're the same.
yeah, no, they're not the same. Depending on from where you come in Sweden, they speak a lot of French anyway. So her being able to, she probably speaks French as one of her native tongues. Everybody in Europe speaks a lot of languages, and kind of by necessity. Of course, I always think of one of my favorite roles of Anne Margaret was when she was she did a movie with John Wayne. And of course, in a Western, and she was just 5'5". Of course, John Wayne's like a foot taller than she, and they were such a funny couple in that movie. And I think she won a Golden Globe for her portrayal in that.
What was the name of it?
I can't think. The name is escaping me right now. I can't think of it. But she wasn't a John Wayne. She wasn't a Western with John Wayne. She obviously, she's been in so much stuff. It's hard to, between television and film, she's done so much stuff, and she really is a classic person. And she was obviously married for a long time in a situation that required a lot of perseverance and fidelity from her.
Oh, yeah. Did he die? I thought he's still married.
Oh, that's what I mean. I'm talking about, yes, they're still married. They've been married a really, really long time.
When you said she was, that was...
Yeah, that's probably a poor use of verb. And she listed herself for years and years as 5'5". She's like 5'3.5", and she's a wonderful singer.
Oh yeah, everything. She's got everything going. To me, I'm really a huge fan of hers.
Do you know from where she got her degree?
No, I didn't even know she had a degree.
Well, she may not, but she did matriculate through Northwestern University. Whether she left degree or not, she kind of left Northwestern to go to Las Vegas to pursue her career as a singer. She was discovered by George Burns.
Yes, I know that. Yes.
And she got a record deal at RCA and a film contract at 20th Century Fox after being discovered by George Burns. She had a single that charted in 1961 in the top 20 of the Billboard Hot 100.
What was it called?
I Just Don't Understand. That same year, she played Betty Davis's daughter in Frank Capra's Pocket Full of Miracles. And of course, she did a lot of, I said that she did some Elvis Presley movies. She did Bye Bye Birdie, Viva Las Vegas. Well, who could blame him? How did she ever not fall for the seduction of the king?
Well, I think she really loved him, but she just because I want to know her. They interviewed her about that when he died, and I actually was doing an interview show for Rock of Ages at the Pantages and for $1 Million Quartet, and I
Now you said
know,
she you said she had won an Oscar, and not
Yeah.
that and for all the sorority girls out there, she was a member of Kappa Alpha Theta at Northwestern. Just throwing that out for whatever it's worth. She was a Kappa Alpha Theta at Northwestern. But
I
anyway,
didn't even know that.
huh?
I was in a sorority too.
Which sorority?
Alpha Gamma Delta.
Get out of here! My daughter's an Alpha Gamma Delta.
You really?
Really, I'm like related to the queen of the Alpha Gamma Deltas. My mother is your sorority sister. My sister is your sorority sister. My daughter.
Oh my goodness.
Check you out, Alpha Gam. You probably have your squirrel teeth all sharpened up, ready to go out a hunting. You just became my mother's favorite actress. But anyway, Anne Margaret, she was at least nominated for 2 Oscars. I don't know. She was a nominee in 1975 for Tommy and the Sunshine Boys. She didn't win the Oscar. George Burns did. One of those, the Sunshine Boys, she did with Burns, and he won the Oscar over her. But I know she was nominated for the Sunshine Boys and Tommy. I don't know that she ever won an Oscar, but I'll tell you, she almost married Burt Sugarman in 1962. Did you know that? Are you still there? Huh.
Sorry, I hit the mute button.
Oh, you know, she almost married Burt Sugarman, who's the producer of Children of a Lesser God, Crimes of the Heart, and Extremities, and he himself.
Yeah, I've been to his house, but it was after he moved. He lived in Trisdale Estate.
So
I was going to say Anne Margaret won for carnal knowledge.
did she? Okay, well I didn't see that. I'll tell you something funny. You know what she made for State Fair back in 1962? She made $300 per week. Yes, a year later, she made $35,000 to be in Bye Bye Birdie, and she made $275,000 in 1964 to make Viva Las Vegas. Now that's quite a bit of money for 1964, but she was the female lead in Viva Las Vegas, and really one of the prettiest women to ever live.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. It's funny how still pretty. I mean, I've seen her in person within the last 5 years.
I wish I could think of the name of the Western that she did with John Wayne, but she did a Western with John Wayne, and I think she was nominated for a Golden Globe for that portrayal. But yes, she's been married to Roger Smith since 1967.
Forever. Yeah, right?
And I think that says something good about you. If you're married to someone for that long, and Roger...
the debilitating illness, and she's still, with it.
That's right. I mean, she could have left, as opposed to staying with him, and she has stayed with him all this time. Of course, Roger Smith is also a television and film actor and screenwriter who starred in the 77 Sunset Strip.
Yeah, wasn't that with Connie Stevens too?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
He went to the University of Arizona, did Roger. Yeah, and he was married before Anne Margaret. He was married to Victoria Shaw.
I don't know who that is, but I think she's an actress, right?
She is. She was an actress who was from Australia. Actually, she was in General Hospital in 1963, Westworld in 1973, which they're kind of remaking now. Well, not kind of. They're remaking the hell out of Westworld. And she was in The Crimson Kimono in 1959. She died in Sydney, Australia. But Roger Smith was married to Victoria Shaw herself. A very
Did she die?
yeah, she died in 1988. Yeah, but
Is that what happened? She died in
oh no. He divorced her in 1965.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Westworld that's now on. I don't know if you've been watching Westworld on HBO, the series.
No, as you know, I hardly have time to sleep, much less watch TV.
Well, she was in Westworld as a remake about the robot malfunctions for unsuspecting vacationers at a futuristic adult-themed amusement park. That was a Michael Crichton Crichton, a Michael Crichton film.
I know who you mean.
You know who I mean, and it had Yul Brynner in it.
Sure.
It had Yul Brynner and Richard Benjamin and James Brolin were in it. Well, they're remaking that right now on HBO. It's a huge hit. It's a really huge hit. My wife and I are completely addicted to it. We watch. It's not on right now. I mean, we watch every season. I think they've got another season upcoming. But Westworld is a remake. I didn't realize that when I started watching it. But you know, I generally research about everything, and so I came to learn that was. But anyway, Robert Smith's first wife was in Westworld.
Oh, I see. That's interesting too.
Yeah, she played the medieval queen. Another person in Westworld, and you'd never get this. If you know anything about now, you need to go on like Netflix and watch some Westworld episodes because Dick Van Patten was in Westworld in the early 70s. And I always think of him as the father in Eight Is Enough.
I did his makeup once because I also had a side where I did hair and makeup.
I mean, you really are a jack of all trades. But Dick Van Patten, is he as nice of a person as you would think?
Yeah, he was nice. And his son, Vince Van Patten, is managed by Michael Wallach, one of my clients, and he's married to Eileen Davidson from opera. And he does a lot of those poker tournaments.
I've got to ask you this question because I'm always curious about this. Well, you may not be willing to give the identity. Let me say this. I had a guest one time who did a movie with a major A-list star, and he told me, he said this guy was really something, as in a bad something. He was really a prima donna. Have you worked with some people in Hollywood that require a tremendous amount of attention? They seem to.
Oh, yeah. I would say a very small handful because most of the guys and girls are really, really nice. But every once in a while you get someone who's a little temperamental. And, you know, you just try and smooth them out because, you know, you don't want to cause any more grief than they already seem to have in their own life, you know. Try to just suck it up, you know.
Is there anybody out there like that you want to name, or are you going to leave that one off nobody seems to be willing to ever say that.
Leave that off, but
Yeah, nobody's willing to ever call out the people that are rear ends. That's how they get away with it, I guess, because there's never any consequence for them acting.
well, the thing is that sometimes those people, they burn out really quickly because, you know, you can't work in a team environment. Like making a film is actually a group effort. And if someone's going to act bad, because even on the set we had yesterday, we had to get rid of somebody because they were drinking and doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. Because you're trying to, you know, put together a production, you have to be concentrated. You can't be partying on the set. And then getting argumentative and stuff like that. So we actually had to banish him from the set because he was just, you know, doing drugs and stuff.
Just doing a lot of stuff he shouldn't do, huh?
Well, yeah, because, you know, and the director said, we're here to work, you know, we're not here to party, and if you want to, don't do it on your own time, don't do it, keep everybody waiting and everything, you know.
You know, there's nothing worse than being taken in a home by, and you don't have to be, because you can get the property inspected by someone with integrity who'll do it thoroughly and correctly. You can get Z-Best Inspection Services. Call Z-Best, that's the letter Z, Best Inspection Services, 931-980-5759. You better write this down. It's 931-980-5759, 5759. and ask for Bud Wink. The home's the most expensive and important investment the American family makes in a lifetime. You don't want anyone inspecting it other than Z-Best. Z-Best Inspection Services, 931-980-5759. Bud Wink is called Z-Best because he's changing the quality of home inspections one house at a time. How big of an issue? I interviewed Karl Gottlieb, and Karl Gottlieb to me is a larger-than-life person. He had been a writer on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour. He wrote the movie Jaws, the script for the movie Jaws. He co-wrote the movie The Jerk with Steve Martin. He was in the movie MASH, which, MASH is one of MASH.
Oh yeah, that's iconic.
Yeah, he was in the movie MASH. And he's had a tremendous, he's done all kinds of television and film and stuff. And I asked Karl how prevalent the casting couch in Beverly Hills is. And he says, well, it's prevalent. You've got men with lots of money and power and women that, and sometimes men that are willing to do whatever they've got to do to get ahead. Have you, I asked this question knowing the answer. Have you had a lot of casting directors, producers, directors make a play for you?
Not that much, because usually there's so many people around, you're having auditions, and I remember though, I had my acting instructor at UCLA trying to show me how to do a stage kiss, and actually I had to report him because he was out of line. That was really strange, because you go to college and you think that, that's not going to happen from your instructor, right?
So he was kind of using the atmosphere of the instruction in order to hit on you, really.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing.
Yeah.
Well, that's inappropriate on so many levels.
I know, right? And so, but as you, I guess, get into more and more situations in real life, because of course, I get into situations I used to get into more, but now that I'm more, used to these situations, and I'm into comedy so much, I'm able to diffuse a lot of situations where at least the guy doesn't feel so bad. And sometimes I can't even, I just have to stay away from them for a while until they think about it. And actually, last week I connected with somebody that I had a little touchy situation with, and he's okay now. It's just, their ego's bruised, you have to wait a while or something to talk to them, because if you, people can't take no sometimes for, just for their ego's sake, but then later on, they could maybe realize, well, that was just one thing, and it's not worth ruining your friendship.
Well,
also, I've had people, they can't be friends with me anymore because, they were attracted to me, and, I didn't want to go there, and so, and I think that's so silly, because I think people in daily life are going to be attracted to people all the time.
well, it's like your attraction to Anne Margaret. Some people are attractive, and what you're seeing really is them outwardly effervescing inward characteristics that you prize and that you admire, and so that admiration becomes an attraction, but it's really an admiration more so than that. One thing I wanted to ask about is that you get involved with charity work, and one of the charities or causes that you have championed is this anti-child trafficking. Obviously, it's a good thing against which to be, the trafficking of children.
Yeah.
But you've been outspoken about that.
Well, there's several different organizations, but my friend Stephanie Chiva, she's a martial artist, and she's from Bulgaria, and she started this whole thing, and she went to actually do a story on it in Thailand. The trouble is, as I was actually discussing this yesterday because I'm doing a reality show that we were filming, and it had to do with there's this organization called Safe Passage, and it's for abused, women. But when you think about one of the problems is when they finally rescue, let's say, somebody, what are you going to do? You have to now find not only a safe venue, but a way for them to support themselves with they're so used to using sex, let's say, to make money. They need to find another way to make money. And so it's not just a quick way to solve it. You can't just boom, figure it out. Because even if you gave them a place to stay, what are they going to do to maintain themselves? Like the story is about giving a man a fish, teaching him how to fish. You have to, find a skill that they can acquire to make a living or to be self-sufficient so they don't rely on somebody saying, here's a quick buck, if that's the case. Or if they're just, even if they're not getting the money, let's say their family sold them, which has happened. Families that are really poor will sell their daughter's virginity. I don't know if you know about that. I was reading this article about that the other day, and I was thinking, wow, that's sad that, in order to survive, the mother, and she's not really happy about it, it's just the way of life, that's what they have, it's their daughter's virginity, so they have to sell that, and then the daughter can come back sometimes, and then they make enough money, but then, they're learning how to sew, or they're learning how to do some skills, life skills are important, so that's a big problem, because, you can rescue somebody, but it's not a matter of just a one-time rescue. You have to be able to make them self-sustainable.
Well, and every now and again we hear in Hollywood about children being exploited by people that are very powerful people. The Corey Haim, the Coreys, talked about it. Feldman and Haim, well known, and there's this fear. There's this fear that if you come out and disclose some of this stuff, these people are very powerful and they'll ruin you in the industry. But you were going to say?
Oh, I was going to say that it's changed a lot now. I think because people have come out and laid the groundwork so that now it's not that hard for people to talk about stuff that before they wouldn't say things about. I think it's better now because people know, and you just have to be careful though, because I also think on the other hand that some people could say things that aren't even true about their situation and accuse people of doing something that they may not have even done. That happens too. It's both ways.
Well, I actually can think of two times that are well-known instances where I really felt like the famous person was being set up. And one of those was one of the allegations against Michael Jackson, because the thing that made me suspicious of the allegation, whether it happened or not, I can't tell you. But if you're a parent and you're taking your kid to Neverland Ranch and dropping them for the weekend, good Lord, with everything that was rumored, wouldn't that have been something that you would have been better off not doing? You know what I mean? And the other one was this rather curious instance with the 13-year-old girl in Roman Polanski, where the mother just is practically throwing this girl at this famous Hollywood director, who, whether he did or he didn't have an inappropriate entanglement with her, I don't know. I know that he was going to plead guilty, and that there had been a negotiated plea, and then the government went back on the plea and he fled to France. I mean, I know what's reported. I'm no insider, but there, any time that you have circumstances where very famous people appear to be set up, to me, it affects the integrity of the allegation. That's the way it cuts the other way, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It gets to be, kind of hard to figure out what's real and what's not because of so many little things like that happening. But hopefully, in general, at least, it seems like people are more, willing. Because I remember one time I had somebody somebody, a photographer, came over to my place, and I was I was kind of like dozing off, and I heard the door. Well, it was a doorbell, but I thought it was the phone. I went to pick it up, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And I opened the door without even thinking. I lived alone. I was in the Hollywood Hills, and I said, "Who is it?" And he goes, and he said, "Me." And he goes, "And I brought a friend." And literally, he told me he was going to rape me, and he slapped me across the face, and I was like, "Oh my God!" So luckily, what she didn't know is I had a phone in the kitchen, and I called my girlfriend. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I said, "Hello," and she said, "Is something wrong?" I said, "Yes," and she said, "Is somebody there that you don't want?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Should I call the police?" I said, "I would if I were you," and because she knew me so well that who would call somebody at 4 in the morning saying nothing, she just knew. So she came over, and the police came, and the first thing they said is, "What kind of pictures do you pose for?" I mean, they just accused me, and I could see, I became the victim, and this was a long time ago, so obviously things have
Well,
changed.
you already were the victim, but you almost became the target. They're like trying to blame you for this occurrence.
Exactly. So I could see why people would be reticent to report stuff, because then you get interviewed. And luckily, the guys left when they said, "Oh my God, we better leave." And I said, "Yes, the police are on their way." I just told them that, and so they left, and luckily I was okay. But I did have that scary moment, and then I had the moment when the police did come, and then they were targeting me as debtors, like I didn't even do anything. And it was like I could see how that could be a big scenario. Had something really happened, you would have to prove more stuff being the victim.
Well, and that's the reason there's rape shield statutes today, Joycelyn, because back in the old days, it was really hard to convict someone of a rape because the defense attorneys would just try the victim. Well, she's promiscuous. Well, what was she wearing? Well, if she maybe if it wasn't for sale, she wouldn't be advertising it. And all of those old cliches made it very, women were reticent to come out and report that they had been subjected to any type of a sexual assault because they knew what came with the territory, and it wasn't nice.
True. And at the time I lived in the cul-de-sac, so actually, come to think about it, this other photographer, or this other guy came to interview me one time, and I had the same situation, but nothing ever happened to me physically per se, just people chasing me around and I'm screaming and and nobody could hear me. I screamed at the top of my lungs, but I was at the cul-de-sac at the end of the hill, and I didn't have a roommate at the time when I was by myself, and you are very vulnerable in certain ways, if you don't. So now it's like I don't give anybody my home address, and I, make sure, because look what happened to Teresa Saldana. People sort of, sometimes, after my roast, I started getting the same phone calls, and so I don't now answer the phone unless I know who is on the other line, or if I'm expecting a call, or, because if it says unknown caller, then that means it's the guy, because, he calls me like all night, and so I just put my phone on mute, and he's been doing this for a couple days, and he even did it about 2 days ago. Every once in a while, he just keeps doing it every hour on the hour, and it's very annoying. So I found an app that can block these calls, but I haven't had time to install the whole thing because you have to go through all these different. Fill out all this information.
Did you ever know Bruce Lee?
No, it was before I was into any of that. I guess I would say. But the same producer, the Big Rob producer, he just passed away a few weeks ago. Fred Weintraub. He produced Woodstock, and he produced Enter the Dragon and the Jackie Chan movie, The Big Brawl. And he actually, by Bruce Lee, he introduced martial arts into. He was very, very influential in the culture by introducing Bruce Lee by doing the Woodstock filming. Fred Weintraub. He just passed away.
Without a Bruce Lee, is there ever a Jackie Chan?
Well, Jackie actually worked on Enter the Dragon as a stunt person.
Yeah, but I mean, you know what I'm saying. Without Bruce Lee, is there a Jackie Chan? Because
Yeah, it's all, everybody paves the way for everything else.
I mean, he endured a lot of years of hard work and injuries to become as successful as he has become. Um,
Oh, he's in so much pain just getting out of bed, I think, in the morning, because he did, Jackie does his own stunts, and he's got a team, this guy named Willie, and they set everything up, but he's actually broken so many bones, kind of like the Asian Eva Knievel, right?
yeah. Well, his Jackie Chan's was born Kong Seng Chan, and his parents immigrated to Australia in the early '60s, and Jackie was not a particularly good student, so his father sent him back to China, and he attended the China Drama Academy, and so I mean he's an excellently trained actor, and he's very acrobatic, and he was a member of a little performing troupe called the Seven Little Fortunes, and that's actually how he got to know other actors that he starred with throughout the years. He started his movie career in the early '70s, and was in Bruce Lee's The Chinese Connection, and had a very small part, and he was in the Enter the Dragon the next year in 1973.
And he's like very down to earth. I heard that he'll sweep the floor if he sees it needs to be done. He's not like a prima donna.
Yeah, he's like I said, there's not too, the prima donnas, it seems like. Lisa Wilcox, I got to interview her, and she and one of my favorite Jackie Chan movies was, he was in a movie with Owen Wilson. I think Owen Wilson is really funny. It's called Shanghai Nights. Yeah. But anyway, Lisa Wilcox said, when I was interviewing her, she said, the bigger the fan, the bigger the person, the bigger the star, the nicer they tend to be. And I told, well, I mean, with all due respect to you and Lisa Wilcox, you guys are kind of big deals. I mean, how somebody, I can understand that, and you're both really good looking. I can understand that a male lead would be nice to you and Lisa Wilcox, where they might not be nice to a Grip or someone else. I think the real test of what kind of a person an actor is, I admire the actors that I hear are nice to the extras, or nice to the support staff. I think that's a real test, because sure, they're going to be nice to the other people that are in the sorority, if you will, or in the fraternity, if you will. But how do they treat the outsiders, I think, is a real test.
It's true. I think so too. Everybody's doing a job, and your job might be your job.
You're bleeding in and out a little bit. Were your parents really proud of you after you made it, because you've really done a lot of work? Did you have that opportunity to have them give you that feedback?
Well, yeah, my mother was super, happy, because she always wanted to be an actress, and I think she kind of got to go to premieres. My dad too, I would take him to premieres with me, and he even saved the sign that's reserved with my name on it, and he taped it on the wall. It was so cute. But then I got him into acting at a very late age. He started in '95, and he was in Pineapple Express, and he was getting commercials, and he's very good looking. I think that was something. He has a great sense of humor.
Now, Pineapple Express was the movie about the Jamaican bobsled team, wasn't it?
James Franco was about marijuana.
Oh, okay. Well, James Franco is a. What is the name of that movie where it was about the Jamaican bobsled team? I don't know why I thought that was Pineapple Express.
I don't know. I don't think I saw it. But James Franco's everywhere too. He's like all over the board. He reminds me of me a little bit. he does everything.
Well, James Franco kind of reminds me, for some reason, I don't know why, but he kind of reminds me of Johnny Depp, and Johnny Depp's a Western Kentuckian. He's from Paducah. Not a lot of people know that, but you're right. Pineapple Express was about a process server and his marijuana dealer are on the run because they witness a hit, don't they? Is that what it was? They witnessed they witnessed a hit, and now that's a great movie, man. I love that. It's got Seth Rogen in it and James Franco.
Yeah.
Seth Rogen and James Franco do a lot of stuff. And Danny McBride, who I love. I love his stuff. He's got a show out that I watch called Vice Principals, and I think he's just brilliant in that. Yeah, I think he's just brilliant in that. And so you get your dad into acting, and of course you can open some doors for him, right? I mean, you've got some connections. You can open some.
I got him an agent and everything, and he started getting callbacks, and I was taking him to wardrobe fittings, and he was getting on a lot of Sony, and they were driving him around. He had a dressing room. It was just so funny because he had spent so long. When I was a child actress, my parents did a lot to get me on the set and taking me there and picking me up, and I would come home I was on touring on stage, when I was 12 in San Francisco, and my mother and I stayed in the hotel room. And when I did the Civic Light Opera in L.A., my dad would have ice cream and food ready for me when I came home at 2 in the morning. So my life has been very different than most kids, because I was a child actress as well.
Well, you forgot to mention that you also got him on Pink Slip.
Oh, well, they wrote that for him.
Yeah, I mean, you did 5 episodes of Pink Slip.
That was written by Muriel Campbell, and Bob Campbell wrote for Law and Order, and he and I are actually writing a script together right now. It's a comedy, of course, because that's what I like, and he's very supportive, and they've been just amazing. They love my dad. Your dad's so handsome. They're always saying how handsome my dad was, and they said, we want to put him in this show. And of course, why not, right?
No, right, that's right. Did he play your father in an episode? You played a character named Lee, surname of Lee, and he.
Mr. Lee, and he was Mr. Lee,
Yeah.
He did. I was in it, and I was in it more than one character because I love to change my whole look. And when I worked with Klaus Kinski, remember Klaus Kinski?
Oh yeah.
Well, I did a movie called Revenge of the Stolen Stars, and we were in Baja, California, Rosarito Beach, and I played this French maid, and I really did a really cute part of a hooker called Coconut Palms, and he said, well, Uli Lomel was the director. He said, you can't play Coconut because you're playing French maid. They've already seen you. And I said, after I finish this part, if I could come in and look completely different, would you let me play it? And he goes, okay, like he's just trying to humor me. So as soon as I finished playing the French maid, I put a wig on and I, did this whole number, and I came back and he looked at me and he went, okay. So then my friend, who was very hicky, he was in this movie, he played the nerd. He said, when he shows the movie, he said, how many people like the French maid? And how many people like Coconut Palms? And he said it was half and half. He said nobody thought it was the same person, though.
And that's how you know you're a good actor. You were able to convincingly do that. I wanted to tell you that I got an opportunity to interview Bruce Glover, and that's Crispin Glover's dad. And Bruce is
Crispin was my client also. I didn't know that. Because Crispin, I did his headshots. He lives around the corner from my printing company.
Well, Bruce Glover is, I think, probably the most famous character actor that there's maybe ever been. He was Mr. Wint in Diamonds Are Forever. And he's done so many. He also played in Walking Tall with Joe Don Baker, and he was in Chinatown with Jack Nicholson. And he's a guy that can play. He's a character actor. He can play Coconut Palms. He can play The French Maid. Yeah, I mean he can really do anything. He said one time about leading actors versus character actors. He said, Harrison Ford is always Harrison Ford. He's always going to play Harrison Ford. There's nothing wrong with that because there's a considerable market. Yeah, there's a considerable market for Harrison Ford and John Wayne and Clint Eastwood, but that's what they're going to play. They're going to be that character. They're going to be that person each and every time. And of course, you never know what he's going to be. He's going to be the comedic foil. He's going to be the villain. He's going to be the hero. He's going to be the deputy. He's going to be all these different things. It takes a lot of range. You enjoy comedy, and that is a genre of acting that doesn't tend to get a lot of critical plaudit or applause. But I think you have to be a genius to do it. I think it takes a lot of genius to be one. That they tell you when you're learning languages and you're fluent in more than one, so you'll know this, that you're really not fluent in a language until you can tell a joke in that language. It's the highest realm. It's the highest realm of fluency, is the timing and delivery that one has to. If you can be funny in a language, you're fluent in that language.
Yes, I could see that.
Well,
I think that a lot of comedic actors can do serious drama, because we've seen like Billy Crystal, we've seen people who switched over, let's say, but I just felt like I was getting taken too seriously, so that's why I thought I would like to do comedy. It's so much fun to make people happy and make them laugh, so I try to put comedy in everything.
Well, I know, Joycelyn, you've heard the saying that laughter is the derivative of pain, and many times comedy comes from a dark place. Robin Williams' comedy came from a very dark place. We learned, sadly, years later. I mean, it's been more than he.
Sure.
From what dark place does your comedy come? What is your dark place that is the wellspring of your being funny?
My parents were great, wonderful, wonderful parents, and I didn't really have to suffer too much about much of anything. So I don't know. I just like being happy. I guess I'm just a positive, optimistic person. I think. I mean, I don't dwell on stuff because people say, "Oh, don't you remember that person owes you money? Don't you remember that person?" I go, I don't remember the bad things about the people, because I knew this one girl, and I knew that there was something she did, but I couldn't even remember what it was. And all my friends remind me of all the bad things that I told them that people did, but I cannot remember them at all because I just kind of block them out. So
did you have any anti-Asian biases that you had to suffer growing up in California?
When I was very, very little, my eyelashes were long and straight, and when somebody said, "You look like you're looking through Venetian blinds," I don't know if that's bad. And then one time I was Miss Wan Fu, and then I was Miss Bijou Beer, and I was doing the modeling for beer companies that came from Asia, and this guy at the bar area afterwards, they had like a little reception. He was kind of hitting on me, and I kind of ignored him. And the worst thing he said to me was, "You eat fish." And I thought, yeah, I eat everything. No, but I'm just saying that was like his insult to me, I guess. I was thinking he's trying to insult me by saying I eat fish.
Well, there's really not a lot of insulting things about Asians that we can say. I mean, there's that rumor about them having small members, but I mean, there's really, Asians are generally super smart. They're very successful. They work very hard. They don't age much. Those all sound like compliments to me. I mean, I might really want to be an Asian. It seems to me. I mean, those are all very positive things. I don't know of too many, but I know that there's been a lot of, anti-Asian, sentiment. I know that there was a World War II internment camp into which Japanese Americans were detained after Pearl Harbor, and I know there's been a lot of bias and there's been a lot of discrimination, but it's just, it just seems to me like that Asian people are attractive. They may not be all that tall, but it just seems to me like that much of what you can say about the culture would be positive anyway. I mean, you eat fish, okay? All right, I'm a fish eater. I'm a fish eater. Okay. That's what's wrong with that? I'm a Catholic. I eat fish.
That was an odd comment. I didn't know what to say about that, so I just walked away from it.
I'll have to say this: this guy that said that to you would not have been a successful cut-down fighter if he'd have grown up and gone to school with me in Kentucky. I mean, we came up with way more devastating crap than you eat fish. Well, you're a model. You've been pictured on fitness publications. You're a sex symbol. All this kind of stuff. I mean, I guess you eat fish is. You've got to search long and hard for something. I guess that's what he had. Right? I mean, that's what he had. That's the best I got. I'm overweight, so they always got that on me. And when you're overweight, growing up in Kentucky, and your middle name is Whaley, which is spelled like whale with a Y. There are people, that is my middle name, and there are people who wondered if that was not more of a description, or what is that, an adjective? You're looking mighty Whaley today, and you're like, that's real funny. So I had to develop a sense of humor too, but my sense of humor did come from a dark place, if you will. So I know of what you speak. I may know more than you. Your humor really didn't come from a very dark place. But how tall are you? Because you look like in your pictures that you're pretty short.
I'm 5'2".
Well, there you go. I mean, by Asian standards, wink, wink, you're not that short. But you're about Anne Margaret height. Well, Anne Margaret's a little taller than you. Huh?
But then my brother said it'd be funny if I were 6 feet and he was 5'2". So he said, I think it's best it came out that way. But it's surprising because my dad wasn't all that short either. But for an Asian guy, that's why I guess he got cast, because he was handsome and he was not that short, But my dad was adopted, so you never know. You never know what you are really because of life. And I think nowadays so many people are mixed. So it's a good thing because you can't be prejudiced against yourself, right?
Well, there's been such a rebirth of prejudice that is just so curious because we are so multiracial. If there's one thing the DNA science has shown us is that we all have a little of something in us.
Yes.
We really are a melting pot. We're like the personification of a melting pot. We're personal personifications of a true melting pot.
And it's just getting more and more so.
How much do you avoid discussing politics and religion, particularly in California, particularly as an entertainer? Because you've had some entertainers take some political stands, and it almost always seems to blow up in their face.
I do like certain causes, like I'm into the ecology and preserving the environment, and I'm with, I think it's really cool that Haley is, helping like the Indians in North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just feel like some people's rights, I just want to help. I try I do volunteer the homeless because I know how to cook, and they had this huge pot of soup that they burned, and he said, "What can you do?" And I put some stuff in it, fresh tomatoes and stuff like that, and actually it was people were asking for seconds, and he thought he was going to have to throw the soup away, and it was actually so good people wanted it after I doctored it, and he said, "What'd you do to it?" I'm amazed, and I said, "Well, you'd be surprised, it wasn't bad, it was just that it had a burnt taste, so I just put fresh vegetables and things in it, and it made it work." And I like to kind of help those kind of people that need help. So I go in, and my girlfriend, Patty Lynn, she's there all the time, but I try as my schedule, allows, because sometimes, like, I was on location all day yesterday shooting that reality show, so I couldn't help her, but I said, well, maybe Tuesday I could drop by sometime, do a little help, even if I can help them make salad or make something.
Where's this reality show going to air, Joycelyn? Because I'd like to see it.
Oh, well, she's just filming it now, so she's working with we had 4 camera producers, and it's called White Girl in the Hood. So it's about, my friend Michelle Fox, and she's been working on the script, and I'm just one of her friends, and we were on Botch together. She had a bad experience where she was kicked in the face with a horse, and she's been trying to, get surgery, get it fixed, and she rents a big place, like a she's got 18 tenants, and it's affordable housing for people who don't have very much money, so she's been doing that, and she's had all these adventures with all these tenants, and she's writing for it. She's only filmed like maybe 3 episodes. We're going to the Philippines next month, and we're going to film some stuff there, so she hasn't really figured out what she's going to do with it. She's just doing it right now, so I don't know where she's going to put it at the end. She's got a guy that works on Big Brother who's kind of helping her.
Well, Joycelyn, that's our music, so we're out of time. I told you it was not going to be a hard 2 hours, and it certainly wasn't. You filled it up admirably. Joycelyn, thank you so much for coming on the long version. A good alpha gam girl. I was glad to find that out. I know my mother, sister, and daughter were thrilled to death. Joycelyn, thank you so much for joining us today for the iRadio Freedom Network, all of us at Village Connection Talk Radio, and all of us here at the long version. Until tomorrow, we have Sibylla Irwin on tomorrow, but until tomorrow, we are out.
They searched the car again. They couldn't find nothing wrong. I caught a charge again. I'm calling Fletcher Long. They searched the car again. They couldn't find nothing wrong. I'm swerving down the road, I don't even wanna brag. I'm sticking cheat code in the cops, they have a badge. They was just harassing me for expiration on the tag. I gave them registration, but a license I don't have. They step out the vehicle, I know this going bad. Then they tried to charge me for possession of a little bag. I told them, hold up, get my lawyer on the phone. The bow tie killer, aka Fletcher Long. They acting like they caught me with a quarter of a zone. I bet they didn't know that my ass is going home. When that court day come, on the flesh postpone. I know the judge is mad, I can hear it in his tone. I'm like bad service, all I do is wrong. If you try to rob me, partner, then you're gonna meet the throne. They calling me a dog, cause all I do is bone. Ever since a juvenile, I've been getting it on my own. 12 years old, I was sweated, I was grown. Chasing all the money in the hundreds like a bee. I had a 22 when I stood 4 feet, and I made the front page before LP. I caught a charge again. I'm calling Fletcher Long.